What if I told you Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance wasn't just about his beef with Drake or even just about music, but a coded message about power, revolution, and breaking free from the system? Kendrick has built a reputation as one of hip-hop's most socially conscious artists, and using his music to challenge systems of power. And yet, he just delivered this message on one of the most corporate-controlled stages in the world, the Super Bowl. But before we dive into the layers of this performance, let's be clear. Kendrick, like any artist, is not a savior. While he may expose the system, he's still a part of it. And putting too much faith in any celebrity can blind us to the deeper forces at play. So what was Kendrick really saying? And what does it reveal about the world that we live in? Let's break it down. Also, big shout out to the dancer who held up the Palestine and Sudan flags. That guy deserves way more attention than he's getting, as well as the countries of Palestine and Sudan. The revolution is about to be televised. Kendrick Lamar opens his performance with this line, a direct reference to Gil Scott-Heron's famous quote, "The revolution will not be televised." But Kendrick flips the meaning. Scott-Heron meant that real change happens in the streets, not on TV. But today, activism is everywhere, on social media, in marketing campaigns, and even at the Super Bowl if it's snuck in the right way, as we saw with the guy holding up the Palestine and Sudan flags. Although some things can be televised, at the end of the day, what Kendrick said at the end, turn the TV off. Real activism does take place out in the streets. And yet, despite some of the visibility of some activism that could be televised, much of it is controlled, diluted, and manipulated by the very systems it claims to challenge. Then Kendrick follows up with, "You picked the right time, but the wrong guy." A warning to those in power. He's saying, yes, revolution is coming, but I won't be your puppet. Because historically, the system doesn't stop revolution. It co-opts it. It takes real movements and repackages them into safe, profitable messages. And that's where artists come in. What's especially powerful is the choice that he made and how far to go. He didn't push it to the extreme, and that's intentional. By holding back, he avoids the risk of being co-opted or worse. Just look at the fate of MLK, Malcolm X, and other revolutionaries who pushed too hard against the system. What those revolutionaries did was important for their times, and it was very necessary. However, those at the top have evolved. The consequences could still be drastic like what we saw in those cases, but their means of silencing voices who challenge the system now involve co-option in even the most subliminal and subtle ways. I would say the co-option of independent media into becoming just media is a prime example of that. Kendrick understands that challenging the system is necessary, but doing so too directly could lead to suppression. Instead, he strikes a balance, raising questions without going too far, leaving us to reflect on how deep the control really goes. His message: we need to think critically about how the system works and how we fit in it. Take Beyonce, for example, in terms of how movements could get co-opted. She once dressed in full Black Panther imagery for a Super Bowl performance, creating the illusion of radical activism. But beyond the theatrics, what has she actually done to challenge power? This isn't just about her, it's a pattern. The industry loves to elevate figures who look like revolutionaries, but never truly threaten the system. And if you want to dive deeper into how Beyonce and Jay-Z act as gatekeepers in the music industry and how their time as gatekeepers may end soon, check out this video right here. Samuel L. Jackson opens Kendrick Lamar's performance as Uncle Sam, welcoming everyone to America's game. At first glance, it sounds like he's just hyping up the Super Bowl. But look deeper, this isn't just about football. The phrase suggests that the real game isn't happening on the field. It's happening all around us. The system we live in, our economy, our politics, our culture, is all a carefully controlled game, a matrix designed to keep people playing while the rules are written by those at the top. Kendrick takes the idea even further by turning the performance into a video game simulation. The set design, the movements, it all suggests that America itself is a programmed system. And who's controlling it? The same elites who benefit from keeping the masses distracted and divided. This is where the Squid Game parallels come in. The dancers in identical tracksuits symbolize the everyday worker, stuck in a cycle where only a few ever make it out. Just like in Squid Game, the real winners are the ones watching from above. Billionaires, the corporations, the policymakers who set the rules while everyone else competes for survival. And that's the point. Entertainment isn't just about keeping people engaged. It's about keeping them distracted. Because as long as we're focused on the game, we're not questioning who is really in control. Kendrick Lamar stands on stage as dancers around him form a divided American flag, one half red, one half blue. It's a striking image, symbolizing a nation split down the middle. Political division, racial tensions, economic inequalities, it's all by design. A fractured society easier to control, divide and conquer. But then something powerful happens. The dancers representing Crips and Bloods come together, a moment that echoes the work of Fred Hampton and the Rainbow Coalition. Hampton understood that real change doesn't come from fighting each other, it comes from unity. That's why he worked to unite Black, white, Latino groups against the oppressors, the ones pulling the strings from above. Kendrick is delivering the same message here. True revolution isn't about taking sides. It's about recognizing that the system thrives on keeping people divided. The moment Crips and Bloods stand together, the illusion of separation starts to fall apart. And that's what makes this dangerous to those in power. Because a united people, that's the one thing the system can't control. We also see SZA standing on an inverted triangle, a powerful symbol of divine feminine energy. In a world where masculine power dominates politics, business, and even rebellion, this isn't just aesthetic, it's a statement. For centuries, patriarchal systems have suppressed the feminine, devaluing intuition, emotion, and collaboration in favor of dominance, aggression, and control. Check out this video here on the anima for more information on that. This imbalance isn't just cultural, it's systemic. From religion to government, from war to capitalism, we've been conditioned to see power as something to be seized rather than something to be shared. Kendrick's performance highlights this imbalance, using SZA's placement as a reminder of what's been lost. True revolution doesn't just challenge racial or economic injustice, it challenges the very structure of power itself. And the greatest threat to the system, it isn't just rebellion, it's balance. Because when the divine feminine rises to meet the masculine, the illusion of control begins to crumble. Kendrick had to censor parts of his lyrics, like the PDF file part, but the crowd made sure part of his message was heard. When the stadium erupted with chants of A minor, it showed just how much power the public can have. And Kendrick also said, "Hey Drake," calling him out by name despite threats by Drake for a lawsuit. But here is the real question. Why did the NFL allow this moment to be broadcasted? The A minor part, was it just to showcase the energy of the crowd, or was there something deeper at play? Because let's not forget the hypocrisy at work here. The entertainment industry, which has silenced artists for far less, openly celebrated Kendrick's diss track at the Grammys. Even having Lucian Grange, the CEO of Universal Music Group, dancing around with Dr. Dre. Meanwhile, Drake, one of the biggest stars in the world, seems to have been quietly disowned by the industry. Why? Was it because of what we've been seeing in the public, or were there private reasons behind the scenes? A combination of the two? At the end of the day, it looks like the industry has agreed to just sacrifice Drake. This is the game Kendrick is playing though. The music industry loves rebellion, but only when it's profitable, only when it serves a larger agenda. Kendrick has a catalog of amazing, deep music. However, he won 5 Grammys for something that wasn't even his best song, but the most popular song at the moment. Artists who truly challenge the system rarely make it to this stage. And yet Kendrick had to step onto a mainstream corporate-controlled platform to spread a message of revolution. That's the irony. Sometimes to expose the system, do we have to play within it? Is Kendrick actually playing a game, or is he part of the problem? Is Kendrick actually playing the game? Does he have limited information about how deep the corruption could go? Could Kendrick himself be being played? Who is really in control here is the question. At the end of the day, there were very important messages that were delivered here on the stage, and that's what I appreciate about this performance. Yes, this is what America wants. Nice and calm. Don't mess this up. That's what Uncle Sam declares, reinforcing the illusion of control. Kendrick playing some of his most popular songs, some of them being more calm, like All the Stars. Stay in line. Don't ask for too much. Accept what you're given. But Kendrick's response cuts through the facade. 40 acres and a mule. It's a reminder of the promise that was never fulfilled. After slavery, Black Americans were told they'd be given land, a chance to build wealth and independence. Instead, that promise was revoked, and systemic barriers have been in place ever since. From redlining to mass incarceration, the system has never been designed to deliver real justice, only to pacify, distract, and maintain control. Then Kendrick drops another line. You can fake the game, but you can't fake the influence. In an industry obsessed with perception, where activism is often performative, real influence is rare. The entertainment world props up figures who play the game, who say just enough to sound radical without challenging the system itself. But Kendrick is making a statement. True power isn't about playing along. It's about shifting the culture, forcing the conversation, and exposing the illusion for what it really is. Trump was at the game. Was this performance directed at him? In a sense, yes. Kendrick Lamar performed in front of the leader of the quote-unquote free world. But this wasn't just about sending a message to Trump directly. It was a reminder to everyone watching that power often isn't in the hands of one person. It's controlled by larger forces, unseen but influential. While Trump may be the figurehead, it's those behind the scenes, those pulling the strings who truly shape the narrative. The ones who profit, whether it's Trump, Biden, Obama, Bush, whoever is in office, those at the top are still profiting. Kendrick's performance wasn't just a critique of one man. It was a challenge to the system as a whole, reminding us all who is really in control. Hip-hop was born from rebellion, an art form rooted in resistance, exposing the system and the spirituality of music. It was meant to challenge power, rise up against societal injustices, and speak truth. But over time, it started to change. This shift isn't entirely new. Hip-hop's co-option has been in motion for decades. When gangsta rap exploded in the late 80s and 90s, what started as a raw expression of struggle was repackaged to glorify violence, misogyny, and excess. Conscious gangsta rap still exists. Tupac did it, Kendrick Lamar does it, and artists like Freddie Gibbs and Griselda's Benny the Butcher and Conway the Machine still bring raw storytelling with depth. But mainstream hip-hop has largely been stripped of its revolutionary spirit. The space that once belonged to truth and resistance is filled with a watered-down version of itself. Now we're seeing the effects of that shift in real time. Mainstream hip-hop's influence has been fading. In early 2023, hip-hop's presence on the USA Spotify Top 50 chart hit an all-time low. And while it rebounded last year, its dominance is no longer guaranteed. Streaming, which is now responsible for 84% of total recording revenue, has also changed the way music is consumed. With low per-stream payouts, artists are pressured to chase viral trends instead of pushing boundaries. Meanwhile, genres like Afrobeats, Latin music, K-pop, and even country are gaining more traction, pulling listeners away from hip-hop's once unquestioned reign. The genre that once challenged the system is increasingly becoming a tool of the system itself, commercialized and turned into a vehicle for materialism. What started as a voice for the marginalized has been co-opted as corporations market it to the masses, pushing a narrative of consumption over consciousness. The question remains, can hip-hop not only maintain its dominance, but also return to its revolutionary roots? Or has the system already hijacked it beyond repair? What are the spiritual lessons that we can learn from this? The first is, number one, breaking free from illusions. Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance wasn't just a show, it was a wake-up call. The game, the media, the entire industry are all part of a larger system designed to control our perceptions and keep us in line. When Kendrick says the revolution is about to be televised, he's pointing at how controlled everything is. But what does it mean to wake up to these structures? It means questioning everything. The stories we're told, the choices we're given, and even the systems we're asked to conform. Breaking free from these illusions starts with awareness. It's about seeing the world for what it is and understanding that there's always more beneath the surface. The second lesson is the power of unity. Real change can't happen unless we heal the divisions that have kept us apart, both as a society and as individuals. Kendrick's portrayal of gang unity, the Crips and the Bloods coming together, is a powerful metaphor for inner integration. We all have opposing forces within ourselves as well, different archetypes, our shadow side, anger and peace, fear and courage, doubt and faith. And just like the gangs, we must find ways to reconcile those forces. Healing societal rifts begins with healing the divides within ourselves. True unity is the foundation of lasting change, whether it's on a personal level or in the world around us. Number 3, the importance of speaking truth even within the system. Kendrick's performance at the Super Bowl, a highly controlled and commercialized event, is a prime example of how truth can still break through in a system designed to suppress it. He showed us that even when you're within a system that seeks to mute your voice, you can still speak truth. This is a lesson for all of us, knowing when to work within the system and when to challenge it from the outside. Change doesn't always come from attacking it aggressively and too directly, because that can end your movement before it even begins. We have to be more strategical and not self-destruct ourselves. The way the system has evolved with more surveillance, more control over our lives, with how our livelihoods depend on our work, we must be more careful and we must be more strategic, while at the same time exposing corruption, informing people, and raising consciousness as much as we can. Number 4, Kendrick is not your savior. In a song from his Mr. Morale album, Kendrick pointed out a crucial truth. He is not your savior. We often place celebrities, politicians, and leaders on pedestals, expecting them to solve our problems. But the truth is, we're all responsible for our own growth and liberation. Kendrick's role isn't to lead us, it's to inspire us to look within and find our own answer. True power comes from recognizing that we must all do the work ourselves. As Tupac once said,
I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us.
And at number 5, still question the narrative. While it may seem that Kendrick's message is untouchable, we must remember to still question the narrative. Are there subtle ways in which even revolutionary messages can be co-opted? We've seen it with other movements. Think of how corporate interests have infiltrated activism like BLM, or how mainstream artists may appear rebellious while still benefiting from the system that they criticize. So the lesson here is, stay vigilant. Just because a message seems authentic doesn't mean it's free from external influence. Always question, always dig deeper, and never accept a narrative without fully understanding who stands to gain from it. However, I caution against being cynical. You have to strike a good balance. Overall, Kendrick didn't just perform, he sent a message. And despite starting out with "the revolution will be televised," he ended it with "turn the TV off," which I hope that you did. Through his halftime show, he highlighted themes like revolution, media control, unity, and industry manipulation. His performance made us question, are we really free, or are we just playing in someone else's game? This is a reminder to think critically about the media that we consume, the power structures that shape our lives, and the role that we each play in the system. The revolution starts with self-awareness. Don't let the narrative control you. Take more control of your life by gaining more self-awareness, elevate your consciousness. And on this channel, we cover topics from psychology, spirituality, how the world affects you. So check out this video right here.